It's been several weeks since I've had an opportunity to send a message. I hope everyone is well, that your families are well, that you are not going to stir crazy at home. Since I last sent a message, there have been unfortunately many deaths touching our community. We wish condolences to all of the Avelim and a refuah shlema to the many cholim. Hopefully, the great efforts we have all taken are leading to safety and health for all of us. There is a certain idea that I'm very fond of relating to the double parsha Acharei-Mos Kedoshim that we are reading this week that I think is extremely relevant for the current situation. It's a thought that I read many years ago in a Dvar Torah from Menachem Leibtag, the brother of our former member Rabbi David Leibtag. When you review the parsha, you will notice that there is a certain phrase that repeats itself over and over again. Ani Hashem, I am God. How many times is Ani Hashem repeated in the last 10 chapters of Sefer Vayikra? I think if you take a look, you read it, you review it, you'll find over 50 times in the last 10 chapters. And yet, isn't it strange that the first half of Sefer Vayikra, the phrase Ani Hashem appears only one time? This distinction is even more perplexing when one compares the subject matter of the first half of Sefer Vayikra with the subject matter of the second half. The first 5 parshas of Vayikra deal exclusively with the laws relating to the Mishkan. For example, the karbanos, the sacrifices, the Mishkan dedication ceremony, and the laws of Tuma Vitara, of ritual impurity and purity. By contrast, the second half of Vayikra, starting with the middle of Parshas Acharei-Mos, and especially in Parshas Kedoshim, seemingly has absolutely nothing to do with the Mishkan. Rather, the end of Vayikra deals primarily with laws relating to how a Jew lives his or her life outside the Mishkan. For example, the Torah discusses which family members we are permitted to marry, the Jewish holidays, basic ethical behavior such as not to steal and lie by adjusting weights and measures, and so on. So since the first half of Vayikra deals with the Mishkan, and the second half deals with appropriate behavior in our daily lives, wouldn't you have expected the phrase Ani Hashem to be emphasized in the first half of Vayikra? After all, the Mishkan is the place where God's presence is most readily perceived in the world. Bring the karbanos, because Ani Hashem. Observe the laws of Tuma Vitara, because Ani Hashem. Consecrate the Mishkan, Ani Hashem. That is what we would have expected. But the phrase Ani Hashem appears only one time in the context of the Mishkan, while in connection with the laws which must be observed outside the Mishkan, Ani Hashem is repeated continually. What lesson is the Torah revealing to us? And to this, Rabbi Leibtag answers beautifully. The Torah is trying to correct a terrible mistake and error which unfortunately plagues all of us until this very day. The dwelling of the divine presence in the Mishkan, as emphasized in the first half of Vayikra, could easily lead a Jew to erroneously conclude that God's presence only rests in that holy place. Based on this mistake, one might conclude that a Jew must be meticulous with respect to his or her spiritual behavior while visiting the Mishkan. However, once we leave that holy place, when the Jew enters the real world, there is no requirement to be so careful. In shul, in the Beis Medrash, in our holy places, we must behave ourselves. But at home or at work, we are free to do as we please. The second half of Sefer Vayikra, which begins with our Parsha, counters this misconception. The Mishkan doesn't limit the divine presence to its confines. Rather, the function of the Mishkan is to channel God's presence from heaven to earth, so as to allow it to emanate from the Mishkan to the entire land. And therefore, the second half of Sefer Vayikra contains mitzvot which translate the intense level of Shechina found in the Mishkan into our daily lives. Because you understand, in the Mishkan, it is clear that Ani Hashem. Who needs to be told that one is standing in God's presence on a visit to the Kosel, or when you are standing before an Aron Kodesh? But outside the Mishkan, we must be constantly reminded that the Shechina is with us. Indeed, the purpose of our lives is to take hold of the sanctity that we experience in the Mishkan, in the Beis Medrash, in a shul, and to transfer it into everything else that we do in life. It's for this reason that the Torah repeatedly states Ani Hashem, not by the Mishkan and the laws relating to the Mishkan, but by the mitzvos that relate to our everyday lives. In our daily lives, one must recognize and attempt to create an atmosphere of that same Ani Hashem that is experienced when one visits a makom shel kedusha like the Mishkan. Unfortunately, we periodically read about events in the Orthodox Jewish community of individuals being accused of crimes, of being indicted, chas v'shalom, for improper conduct with respect to their financial dealings with others. It's hard to make sense of this. Where does the Torah state Ani Hashem? When it commands a Jew to pray? When it commands a Jew to learn Torah? When the Torah discusses the Mishkan? No, none of those things. The Torah states in this week's Parsha, Lo signovu, a Jew may not steal. V'lo shesachshru, one may not lie. V'chilalta Hashem Elokecha Ani Hashem, because by doing so, a Jew desecrates the name of God. I am Hashem. V'ahavta l'orecha kamocha, Ani Hashem. You have to love your fellow like yourself, because I am God. Whether a person gets caught or not, whether it's for a mitzvah or to line one's pockets, Ani Hashem, it's prohibited, and it's a chil Hashem. It's especially important now when all of the shuls still remain closed and we are lacking that shot of spiritual energy that all of us receive when we step into our building, into our shul, and hear the voice of Torah and Tefillah. It's especially important to emphasize this idea, because right now it's extremely difficult to feel spiritual excitement after many weeks of distance from our Makomos HaKadusha, from the shul, from other Jews, from smachot. But this week's Parsha reminds us that Ani Hashem exists outside of the Mishkan and outside of our Mikdash Ma'at. Ani Hashem can and should permeate our homes, our daily interactions with our families, our assisting people who may need extra help, our periodic excursions to pick up items that we may need, our support for healthcare workers and public servants who are being moser nefesh to save thousands of people afflicted with the virus. We are away from our sanctuary, but the Torah tells us that God dwells within each of us, and we have the capability to remain uplifted and spiritually charged during these difficult times with our own personal Torah, Tefillah, and Chesed. In fact, there are probably more opportunities now when things are so backwards, when things are so difficult, to bring Hashem into our lives than when life is just plain and ordinary. I'm reminded of the story involving Rabbi Leibele Eger, the grandson of the famous Rabbi Kiva Eger, who had heard that there was a spiritual revolution taking place in the city of Kotsk under the leadership of the great Hasidic Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk. And Rabbi Leibele Eger decided to go and visit there. Rabbi Leibele Eger wasn't a Chassid. To the contrary, his grandfather was the leader of the non-Hasidic community, considered the greatest scholar of his time. When Rabbi Leibele Eger came to Kotsk, he was expecting a warm welcome because, after all, it's a coup to have the grandson of the greatest non-Hasidic rabbinic leader deciding to spend time with you. He was expecting some protexia, to be treated special because, after all, he was from such a special family. But when he got there, the Kotzker instructed all of his followers to ignore the new arrival. A week after being continuously ignored, the Kotzker sat down next to Rav Leibele, and he asked him, "Rav Leibele, why are you here?" Startled, Rav Leibele responded, "To find God." The Kotzker screamed, "To find God? If you want to find God, go back to Warsaw from where you came. You can find God wherever you are and wherever you came from. But if you want to find yourself, then take out a sefer and let's study together. That we can help you with." And so, as we continue to daven that we will soon be reunited and we will return to our shul, and that may help assist us with some self-discovery. We may be able to assist in finding ourselves. But this week's parsha of Acharei-Mos, this week's parsha of V'ahavta l'orecha kamocha ki ani Hashem, should strengthen all of us to recognize that while it certainly helps to be in shul, but the truth is that God is all around us, and we are capable of bringing the Ani Hashem wherever we go, both inside and outside the Mishkan. My best wishes to you all. If you need anything or just want to say hello, let me know, or just to let me know how your families are doing, please call or email or text. We miss you all. Have a great Shabbos.